Hey, what's up guys? This is Cole with CJC Off-Road. Today we are going to address steering on 2014 and newer Ram 2500 and 3500 trucks. So if your truck has loose, sloppy, wandering steering, if the truck has death wobble, this is a great video for you to basically help not only identify what these issues are, but how to address them as well. To help simplify this process, what I'm going to do is actually show you guys what each of these components are. If you're not too familiar with these trucks, it may seem confusing, but actually it's very simple, so we're going to break that down for you right now. Laying underneath the front of the truck, you'll see basically everything we need to look at here. To start, we have the drag link. So the drag link is the connection here from the pitman arm all the way on down to the passenger side of the truck. This is basically the upper part of your truck's steering linkage. Behind that, we have your truck's track bar. This is the frame side here. On the driver's side, all the way down to the passenger side on the axle. So you have two joints on your track bar. Last but not least, starting on the passenger side, your lower tie rod. So this is the lower part of your steering linkage onto the driver's side here, back to the passenger side. These are some of the main elements. Here on the passenger side, you'll see the steering stabilizer connects to your truck's factory steering linkage. Assuming your truck has been modified in a way that removes the factory stabilizer or stabilizer mount, this is what your truck should look like. Last but not least, we have the ball joints. First here we have the upper, and then now we have the lower ball joint. It's going to be mirrored on both sides of the truck, right? So each side of the truck has an upper and a lower ball joint on it. Now that we've gone out of the way what all these basic parts of the front end of the truck are, we're going to go through the process of basically diagnosing the front end. I just want to preface all this with one thing. If your truck is a 2014 to 2018 model, an easy fix to help basically address play in your truck steering column is EMF's intermediate shaft bushing. This does not apply to those of you with 2019 and newer trucks. So again, older model 14, 18 trucks, EMF's intermediate bushing is a great way to help basically address the initial part of the slop in your truck steering column. From there, we'll go ahead and look at the steering box. So with the truck keyed on to power, but not actually running, you'll go ahead and basically have somebody rock this truck steering wheel back and forth, roughly a quarter of a turn. And what you want to do from here is actually go underneath and look at your truck steering box. So that pitman arm, where we showed a little earlier in this video, basically that box that's connected to, what you want to do is actually watch on the intermediate shaft portion, so where the shaft connects to the top of the box. If you're getting a ton of movement there, but not much movement down at the pitman arm, it's safe to say that there is a good amount of play in your truck steering box, and it's something that should be addressed. This is something that's more common, I'd say, on trucks with 100,000 miles and more, things like that. So new low mileage trucks, we typically don't see much steering box play, but something to consider as you're diagnosing where your truck's play is coming from. From here, let's go ahead and turn the truck on. Obviously, it's a manual transmission, especially. Make sure your truck's parking brake is on. Make sure truck's in a safe position so it can't roll. Turn the truck on. And what you want to do from here is actually have your buddy go ahead and rock the steering wheel back and forth about a quarter of a turn. This is actually not going to be a light rock. You want to actually somewhat violently rock the steering wheel back and forth. The goal here is to basically put enough force through the steering to be able to identify what's moving in the truck's front end. From here, we're going to actually work from top to bottom. So the steering wheel being rocked back and forth, you will actually look at the just where we left off earlier. So the pitman arm. Basically, the drag link is from the pitman arm on down to the axle. That's that first link we identified. It's very common on these trucks to see play on the passenger side where this drag link meets the tie rod, or actually in this case, the knuckle on these trucks. So keep an eye out for play right there. Basically, any kind of movement in the joints that looks excessive is what we're looking for here. So any kind of rolling front to back is actually normal with these trucks. These joints on these trucks need to be able to rotate a bit in order to not bind as the steering cycles, but any sort of excessive lateral side-to-side movement, any sort of pop, that's what we're looking for. This truck here, this is a perfectly tight truck, so it has relatively new steering components on it. So what we see in this video is actually what you'd want to see if you're looking at your truck. If it looks something like this, I'd say your steering tie rod ends are good to go. So we are going to work our way now down the tie rod. So the tie rod is the lower steering piece below what we just looked at. I'd say tie rods are a little less likely to have movement in them on lower mileage trucks. Usually tie rod movement is, or movement in the tie rod ends on the lower tie rod portion is something you see with higher mileage trucks. That said, again, we're just looking for lateral movement, side to side, or popping. Rotational movement is, again, perfectly normal for these trucks. Feel free to reference this truck in this video for what your truck should look like. From here, we're going to move to the track bar. This is one of the most commonly worn out parts of the front of these trucks. So on here, you're looking on both the frame side and the axle side for lateral movement or popping. Stock track bars, you tend to see this after about 25 to 30,000 miles on trucks that are driven hard. We've obviously seen stock track bars last longer than that, but basically any kind of movement, either the frame side or the axle side joint, basically indicates it is time to replace your track bar. In this truck here, you'll see a Carly adjustable track bar, and this is basically along the lines of what it should look like under your truck. Last thing we're going to check on the truck's front end is the ball joints. You'll see all kinds of things about ball joints online. So we're going to show you guys how to check your truck's ball joints. So what you'll do is actually jack up basically one side at a time of your truck's front axle. Basically jack it up 1 to 2 inches off the ground. Have a friend take a large pry bar and basically violently lift up on the truck's tire. This might take a little bit of messing around to get it right, but as you watch the ball joints move, you'll see basically essentially all ball joints, you'll see some vertical movement up and down. That's nothing unusual as long as it's not excessive. Any kind of lateral movement is basically an indicator your ball joints are pretty worn out with how the joints are inside of these ball joints. So again, we're looking for lateral movement here, and that's usually the most telltale indicator that your ball joints are shot. One thing I'll caveat this with is sometimes you will feel or basically see play in the tire when you're basically checking the ball joints. And if there's no movement in the ball joints, one thing that could be of concern is your truck's hubs. You don't usually see it on newer trucks. So usually I'd say trucks with 60 to 100,000 miles is where the hubs on these start to go. These are unit bearing hubs, so there's really no addressing them or maintaining them. Basically, once it's worn out, you replace the hub with a replacement hub and basically address that movement in the hubs. One last thing, specifically for those of you with death wobble on these trucks, tires can be a very big player or a very big contributor into death wobble on these Rams. Tires with thin sidewalls, tires with broken down sidewalls with a ton of miles on them can be very big contributors toward death wobble on these trucks. We actually see a lot of this kind of thing with higher mileage stock tires. The sidewalls on them tend to break down over time. So stock tires with 30, 40, 50,000 miles on them, we start to see this sort of thing. So tires can be a very major contributor toward death wobble. There's no real easy way to test a tire for broken down sidewalls or things along those lines. So what we typically do here, if we have a buddy with a truck with same bolt pattern, and their truck's not getting death wobble, swapping wheels and tires from their truck and test them out on yours to see if it makes it go away is a real easy way to help isolate that tires might be the root cause. So hopefully this helps you guys diagnose what is causing the play or wander or death wobble on the front of your truck. As you'll see, there are a variety of things that can cause this sort of movement. You'll see a lot of people online just say, oh, throw X part at it and it'll take care of it. In some cases that's true, right? But our goal here is to really be effective with identifying what is actually causing that problem, and that way you're not wasting money on parts you don't necessarily need for your truck. We've actually put together a page on our site, Ultimate Steering page, and it basically goes through all the best of the best aftermarket options for the various components we've talked about. You're not required to buy every single part on the page, but you can basically check along the boxes of what's basically worn out on your truck and address it all in one shot. So again, we hope this helps you guys get your truck back on the road and driving as it should. If you have any questions regarding your specific truck or diagnosing anything in particular, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help out however we can. We can also supply your local shop with these parts, so if you're not comfortable installing those parts yourself, we do wholesale on every single component listed here, so we're happy to do that as well. Again, hopefully this helps you guys out. We put a lot of time into basically helping get these trucks drive their absolute best, so hopefully this helps you through that process. And you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. We have a lot more similar content coming up.